Are religious decisions made by politicians politically motivated? It sounds like exploiting people's deepest beliefs, but politicians have been known for doing it for centuries. Recently, Putin decided to move a holy icon from a museum to a church. Many say this has something to do with the Russia-Ukraine war. Perhaps Russia is trying to garner support from believers. But what's the truth? Why move holy icons? Let's find out. The Russian president is making decisions related to religion that confuse people. We are talking about Andrei Rublev's Trinity. He decided to move this holy icon from a museum to Moscow. But what is Andrei Rublev's Trinity's historical and religious significance within Russian culture? Andrei Rublev's Trinity's historical and religious significance within Russian culture is profound and multifaceted. Dating back to the 15th century, the Trinity is not merely an artistic masterpiece, but a revered icon that encapsulates the essence of Russian Orthodox spirituality and heritage. Firstly, the icon is attributed to Andrei Rublev, a renowned medieval Russian painter considered a master of religious art. Rublev's work represents a pinnacle of Russian iconography, characterized by its spiritual depth, intricate symbolism, and profound theological themes. Trinity depicts the biblical narrative of the Oak of Mamre, where three angels visited the Patriarch Abraham, symbolizing the Holy Trinity in Christian theology. This portrayal holds immense theological significance within Russian Orthodoxy, emphasizing the central tenet of the Christian faith, the belief in one God in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Furthermore, the Trinity serves as a visual representation of the spiritual journey and communion with the divine. Its serene composition, harmonious colors, and ethereal atmosphere invite contemplation and meditation, fostering a sense of spiritual transcendence for the viewer. Beyond its religious symbolism, Trinity is also a cultural treasure and a symbol of Russian identity. It reflects the artistic achievements of the medieval Russian Orthodox Church and its role in shaping Russian culture and society. Through its preservation and veneration, Trinity connects contemporary Russians to their historical and religious roots, fostering a sense of continuity and collective memory. Moreover, Trinity has endured centuries of political upheaval, social change, and cultural transformation, yet it remains a steadfast symbol of faith and resilience for the Russian people. Its transfer to the Moscow Cathedral symbolizes a religious gesture and a reaffirmation of Russia's cultural and spiritual heritage amidst geopolitical challenges. So, why could Putin have transferred Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral? Putin's decision to transfer Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral has sparked a range of interpretations, reflecting diverse perspectives on the intersection of politics, religion, and culture in contemporary Russia. Some analysts view Putin's decision as a strategic act to consolidate political power and bolster his image as a defender of traditional Russian values. By aligning himself closely with the Russian Orthodox Church and promoting religious symbolism, Putin seeks to reinforce his legitimacy and authority amidst internal and external challenges. The transfer of the Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral is a symbolic gesture of Putin's commitment to upholding Russia's cultural and religious heritage, strengthening his political base, and garnering support from conservative societal elements. Another interpretation posits that Putin's directive is driven by geopolitical considerations, particularly in the context of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. By transferring Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral, Putin may seek to invoke historical and religious narratives to justify Russia's actions in the conflict, framing it as a righteous struggle against external threats to Russian sovereignty. The use of religious symbolism serves to rally domestic support for Putin's policies, while also signaling to the international community Russia's historical and cultural ties to Ukraine and the broader region. Some observers interpret Putin's decision as a reflection of his commitment to preserving and promoting Russia's cultural heritage. In this view, the transfer of the Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral is seen as a symbolic gesture aimed at safeguarding a revered religious artifact and ensuring its continued veneration within the Russian Orthodox tradition. By placing the Trinity in a sacred space like the Moscow Cathedral, Putin may seek to emphasize the importance of cultural preservation and religious observance in fostering national unity and identity. There is also speculation that Putin's directive to transfer Trinity may serve as a diversionary tactic to deflect attention from his administration's domestic and international challenges. By focusing public discourse on religious symbolism and cultural heritage, Putin may seek to shift attention away from pressing economic, social, and political issues, thereby reinforcing his control over the national narrative and maintaining popular support. Internationally, Putin's decision to transfer Trinity is interpreted through the lens of Russia's broader geopolitical ambitions and its efforts to assert influence on the global stage. Religious symbolism in domestic politics could be considered part of a broader strategy to project Russia as a defender of traditional values and challenge Western dominance in shaping global norms and narratives. But still, this does not sound relevant to the Russia-Ukraine war conflict, as everyone is saying. How does Putin's alignment with the Russian Orthodox Church serve his political agenda amidst the Ukraine-Russia conflict? Putin's alignment with the Russian Orthodox Church serves his political agenda amidst the Ukraine-Russia conflict in several strategic ways, leveraging the influence of religion to bolster his domestic support and shape international perceptions of Russia's actions. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. By aligning himself closely with the Russian Orthodox Church, Putin taps into deeply ingrained cultural and national identities within Russian society. Orthodoxy has long been intertwined with the idea of Russianness, serving as a unifying force that transcends regional, ethnic, and political divides. Putin's association with the Church reinforces his image as a defender of traditional Russian values and cultural heritage, positioning him as a guardian of national identity amidst perceived external threats. Putin's alignment with the Russian Orthodox Church also legitimizes his political authority and leadership in the eyes of the Russian populace. By cultivating strong ties with the church hierarchy and participating in religious ceremonies and rituals, Putin presents himself as a pious and devout leader who shares common values with most Russians. This alignment with the church helps to bolster Putin's perceived moral authority and legitimacy, particularly during times of crisis such as the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Putin leverages the influence of the Russian Orthodox Church to mobilize domestic support for his policies and actions in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. The Church plays a significant role in shaping public opinion through its extensive network of parishes, media outlets, and educational institutions. Putin's alignment with the Church allows him to disseminate his narrative of the conflict as a righteous struggle to defend Russia's interests and protect Orthodox believers in Ukraine, rallying popular support for his government's actions. Putin's close ties to the Russian Orthodox Church also shape international perceptions of Russia's actions in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. By framing the conflict in religious terms and portraying Russia as the defender of Orthodox Christianity against perceived Western encroachment, Putin seeks to garner sympathy and support from Orthodox majority countries and communities worldwide. This narrative helps to counter Western criticisms of Russia's actions in Ukraine and presents Russia as a moral actor on the global stage. But most of the time, these narratives come from the West. It is important to know Russia's narrative. How do Western perspectives differ from Russian narratives regarding the motivations behind Putin's actions? Western perspectives and Russian narratives regarding the motivations behind Putin's actions in the Ukraine-Russia conflict diverge significantly, reflecting contrasting interpretations of geopolitical dynamics, historical grievances, and national interests. These differences in perspective shape how Western countries and Russia frame and interpret the conflict, often leading to conflicting narratives and policy responses. Many Western countries view Putin's actions in Ukraine as aggressive expansionism, aimed at undermining Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity. They see Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and ongoing support for separatist movements in eastern Ukraine as clear evidence of Putin's willingness to use military force to achieve geopolitical objectives. Western perspectives often emphasize concerns about the erosion of democratic norms and human rights in Russia under Putin's leadership. They point to crackdowns on political dissent, media censorship, and the suppression of civil liberties as evidence of Putin's authoritarian tendencies. Western analysts also highlight Russia's economic and strategic interests in the region, including access to natural resources, control of strategic transportation routes, and the desire to maintain influence over former Soviet republics. They view Putin's actions in Ukraine as part of a broader strategy to assert Russian dominance in the post-Soviet space. For all these reasons, they think the recent decision should also be considered in the context of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, let's talk about Russia's narrative. Russian narratives portray Putin's actions in Ukraine as defensive measures aimed at protecting the interests of ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking populations in the region. They emphasize historical ties between Russia and Ukraine, including shared cultural heritage and linguistic affinity, to justify Russian intervention. Russian perspectives often frame the conflict as a response to perceived Western encroachment into Russia's traditional sphere of influence. They accuse Western countries, particularly the United States and NATO, of seeking to expand their influence eastward through the enlargement of military alliances and support for pro-Western governments in the region. Russian narratives highlight national security concerns, including the perceived threat posed by NATO's eastward expansion and the deployment of missile defense systems near Russia's borders. They argue that Putin's actions in Ukraine are necessary to safeguard Russia's security interests and prevent encirclement by hostile powers. They say the decision to move the holy icon has nothing to do with Ukraine. But if we talk about Western concerns, then what role do Christian symbolism and metaphysical rhetoric play in shaping public opinion and political discourse in Russia? Christian symbolism and metaphysical rhetoric play a significant role in shaping public opinion and political discourse in Russia, serving as potent tools for mobilizing support, legitimizing authority, and framing national identity and geopolitical narratives. These religious and metaphysical elements are deeply ingrained in Russian culture and history, influencing how individuals perceive and interpret political events and societal developments. Christianity, particularly Orthodox Christianity, has been a defining aspect of Russian culture and identity for millennia. Christian symbolism, including icons, religious rituals, and sacred texts, is woven into Russian society, providing a sense of continuity and shared heritage. As such, invoking Christian symbolism in political discourse appeals to traditional values and cultural identity, resonating with a broad population segment. Political leaders in Russia often utilize Christian symbolism and metaphysical rhetoric to legitimize their authority and leadership. By presenting themselves as defenders of Orthodox Christianity and guardians of traditional values, politicians can bolster their perceived moral authority and legitimacy in the eyes of the public. This strategy is particularly effective in a society where religious faith remains deeply entrenched and respected. Christian symbolism is also employed to foster a sense of national unity and resilience in the face of external challenges and internal divisions. Religious imagery, such as references to divine protection and providence, can inspire feelings of solidarity and fortitude among the population, rallying support for government policies and actions, particularly during crisis or conflict. Metaphysical rhetoric, infused with Christian symbolism, is often used to construct geopolitical narratives and historical mythology that shape Russia's self-perception and external relations. References to Russia's historical role as the Third Rome, or the defender of Orthodox Christianity against foreign invaders, evoke a sense of national destiny and spiritual mission, framing contemporary geopolitical struggles in cosmic terms. Christian symbolism and metaphysical rhetoric oppose perceived Western influence and assert Russia's distinct civilizational identity. By framing Russia as a bastion of traditional values and spirituality, politicians can rally public sentiment against perceived Western decadence and moral relativism, positioning Russia as a bulwark against secularism and liberalism. Anyway, apart from these concerns, there are also some other challenges. They are concerned about the preservation and handling of Trinity during its transfer. Several concerns have been raised regarding the preservation and handling of Trinity during its transfer from the Moscow Tretyakov Gallery to the Moscow Cathedral. These concerns stem from the iconic status of the Trinity as a revered religious artifact and the potential risks associated with its relocation and exhibition in a different setting. One of the primary concerns is the risk of damage to Trinity during the transfer process. As a centuries-old religious icon crafted using delicate materials and techniques, the Trinity is inherently fragile and susceptible to handling, transportation, and environmental damage. Any mishandling or improper packaging could harm the icon irreparably, compromising its historical and cultural value. Preservationists and art historians have expressed concerns about the conditions in the Moscow Cathedral, where Trinity will be displayed. Factors such as temperature fluctuations, humidity levels, and exposure to natural light can adversely affect the icon's condition. Trinity may be vulnerable to deterioration and degradation without adequate climate control measures and conservation protocols. There are also concerns about security risks associated with the transfer and exhibition of Trinity in a public setting. Given the icon's religious significance and cultural importance, it may attract attention from individuals or groups with malicious intent, including art thieves, vandals, or extremist elements. Ensuring robust security measures, including surveillance, alarm systems, and trained personnel, safeguards Trinity from theft or damage. Some critics have raised ethical considerations regarding transferring Trinity from a museum setting to a religious institution. The decision to relocate the icon may raise questions about ownership, stewardship, and the proper context for its display. Art historians and preservationists argue that Trinity should remain in a museum environment where it can be properly curated, studied, and conserved for future generations. Finally, there are concerns about public access and oversight during Trinity's exhibition at the Moscow Cathedral. While the transfer may enhance the icon's visibility and accessibility to worshippers and visitors, transparent governance and accountability are needed to ensure responsible stewardship of the Trinity. Establishing clear protocols for its care, maintenance, and public display is crucial to mitigate risks and uphold the icon's cultural and religious significance. Some concerns from historians also play a role in the controversy. And what are those? Russian art historians raise objections to transferring the Trinity out of concern for preserving Russia's cultural heritage. As custodians of the nation's artistic legacy, they advocate for the responsible stewardship and conservation of religious artifacts, such as the Trinity, ensuring their long-term survival for future generations. By opposing the transfer, art historians emphasize the importance of maintaining the Trinity within a museum setting, where it can be properly curated, studied, and preserved according to established conservation standards. The objections from Russian art historians also draw attention to historical precedent and the role of religious icons in Russian history and culture. Throughout the centuries, icons like the Trinity have served as symbols of faith, identity, and national resilience in the face of external threats and internal challenges. By relocating Trinity to the Moscow Cathedral, critics argue that the government risks undermining the historical significance of the icon and exploiting it for political purposes, eroding its cultural value and integrity. Art historians' objections reflect concerns about the instrumentalization of art for political propaganda. By transferring the Trinity to a religious institution, critics argue that the government may seek to co-opt the icon for political purposes, symbolizing national unity and spiritual resilience in support of government policies and agendas. This politicization of art undermines the autonomy and integrity of cultural institutions and diminishes their ability to fulfill their educational and scholarly missions. Finally, Russian art historians' objections highlight broader concerns about freedom of expression and academic inquiry in Russia. By speaking out against the transfer of the Trinity, art historians assert their right to dissent and engage in critical discourse, challenging government decisions that they perceive as detrimental to cultural preservation and artistic integrity. This tension between state control and intellectual freedom reflects deeper societal divisions over the role of art, heritage, and cultural identity in shaping Russia's national narrative. This has brought Patriarch Kirill onto the scene. How does Patriarch Kirill of Moscow frame the Ukraine-Russia conflict as a moral imperative? Patriarch Kirill of Moscow frames the Ukraine-Russia conflict as a moral imperative by invoking religious rhetoric and emphasizing the spiritual significance of defending Russian interests and Orthodox Christianity. As the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill wields significant influence over public opinion and political discourse, leveraging his authority to shape perceptions of the conflict and rally support for Russia's actions. Patriarch Kirill portrays the Ukraine-Russia conflict as a metaphysical battle between forces of good and evil, framing Russia's involvement as a righteous struggle against external threats to Orthodox Christianity and Russian identity. By invoking religious imagery and spiritual language, he imbues the conflict with moral significance, presenting it as a sacred duty to defend the faith and protect believers from persecution. Patriarch Kirill emphasizes the defense of traditional values and moral principles as a central tenet of Russia's engagement in the conflict. He portrays Russia as a bastion of Orthodox Christian values and traditional morality, standing in opposition to perceived Western decadence and secularism. He seeks to galvanize public support for Russia's policies by appealing to deeply ingrained religious and cultural norms. Patriarch Kirill frames Russia's intervention in Ukraine as a necessary measure to protect the interests of ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking populations in the region. He argues that Russia has a responsibility to safeguard the rights and well-being of Orthodox believers, who are perceived as facing discrimination and persecution in Ukraine. This narrative reinforces the idea of Russia as a protector of its people and a defender of religious freedom. Patriarch Kirill invokes divine providence to justify Russia's actions and assert its historical role as a chosen nation with a special mission. He suggests that Russia's involvement in the conflict is part of a larger divine plan to preserve orthodoxy and uphold traditional values in the face of external threats. This narrative elevates Russia's actions to a higher moral plane, positioning them as part of a sacred mission ordained by God. Do internal divisions exist within the Russian Orthodox Church regarding its alignment with Putin's political agenda? Internal divisions exist within the Russian Orthodox Church regarding its alignment with Putin's political agenda. These divisions reflect differing perspectives on the appropriate relationship between church and state, the role of religion in public life, and the Church's stance on social and political issues. Some members of the Russian Orthodox Church may hold divergent theological views or belong to different ecclesiastical jurisdictions within the broader Orthodox communion. These differences can lead to internal tensions regarding doctrine, liturgy, and church governance, impacting the Church's stance on political issues and its relationship with the state. Within the Russian Orthodox Church's clergy and laity, there are varying political allegiances and affiliations, ranging from staunch supporters of Putin's government to vocal critics and dissenters. While some church members may align closely with Putin's political agenda, viewing him as a defender of traditional values and national interests, others question or oppose his policies, particularly on issues related to human rights, democracy, and social justice. Do you think Russia has some secret intentions? Why do you think Putin did this? Are Western speculations right this time? Let us know in the comments section, what are your thoughts about it? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.